For Dave Lewis, the long-awaited promotion to replace Hall of Fame head coach Scotty Bowman wasn't exactly a smooth transition. Not so much from the first 82 games, as the Detroit Red Wings continued their regular season dominance, finishing first in their division both years while winning a President's Trophy. But playoff success eluded them. Not getting out of the second round either year, including a shocking first-round sweep to the Anaheim Ducks, general manager Ken Holland fired the longtime assistant and short-term head coach. Interesting timing, as a coach who Ken Holland had an up-close look at 2 years earlier, Mike Babcock, had also just been fired. The result of a disastrous post-Stanley Cup run hangover in Anaheim. Fun fact, he was fired after coaching newly acquired star center Sergei Fedorov, signed away from Detroit, which I did a long-form video on if you're curious, linked above. The timing worked out great as the franchise brought in the hard-nosed taskmaster, and right off the bat, the Babcock era produced amazing results. With Detroit going from back-to-back 48-win seasons with Dave Lewis to 58 wins and 124 points, while unleashing two soon-to-be superstars on the NHL. As the historic 2002 Cup-winning Detroit Red Wings entered further and further into the rearview mirror, along with the Hall of Fame forwards that occupied a substantial part of the offense, head coach Mike Babcock leaned heavily on two specific players up front, Pavel Datsyuk and Henrik Zetterberg. Previously, Pavel Datsyuk and Henrik Zetterberg gained national attention on another line, clicking in the 2002-2003 season with legendary 38-year-old sniper Brett Hull. Dubbed by Hull himself, the two kids and old goat line. And while it was unique seeing the iconic score playing with the 24 and 22-year-old, they really weren't the star players we now think of today, at least not yet. The young duo finished the 02-03 season with 51 and 44 points while skating under 16 minutes. The following year, Pavel Datsyuk took a nice leap, showing signs of his offensive brilliance, leading the team with 68 points, as Zetterberg was still finding his way with 43. And while we now know how elite they'd become defensively, the Dave Lewis-led Wings had a great luxury at center, relying on an aging Steve Yzerman and grindline veteran Chris Draper, who would capture the Selke Trophy in 2004, for those tougher defensive assignments, allowing the Euro Twins to maximize their offensive development. However, fast forward to the end of the lockout and more familiar faces exiting, the reliance on the Euro Twins would increase, as did their production. Pavel Datsyuk and Henrik Zetterberg hit another level of offense in the 2005-2006 seasons, finishing first and second in Red Wings scoring both years. Pavel Datsyuk dazzled hockey fans, donning the nickname the Magic Man. With his otherworldly, in-tight stick handling and amazing vision, he evolved into a true number one pivot, with back-to-back over-point-per-game performances, finishing with 87 points. Henrik Zetterberg took an amazing leap in his age 25 season, nearly doubling his previous point production with 85 points in 77 games, and only injuries were really able to slow him down the following year, scoring at an 89-point pace with 68 points in 63 games. As Mike Babcock increased their ice time to 20 minutes a night and played them in all scenarios, both the Euro Twins showed up in the Selke voting for the first time, with Zetterberg finishing 7th and Pavel Datsyuk finishing 20th. They were now both legitimate first-line all-stars. With all the previously mentioned Hall of Fame forwards leaving, and as a consequence of a franchise constantly chasing after Stanley Cups, it's no surprise they weren't exactly loaded with young prospects ready to step up. Enter Tomas Holmstrom, who had been with the franchise since their first Stanley Cup in 1997. He slowly began carving out a niche for himself as a hardworking and reliable forward, who had become brutally effective at taking brutality in front of the net, turning his lunch pail artistry into an invaluable source of scoring. And as the opportunities were given, he would keep putting pucks in the net, developing amazing chemistry with Pavel Datsyuk and Henrik Zetterberg. The gritty Swede ended up earning serious minutes with the Euro Twins, and his dirty work would impressively turn in 29 and 30-goal campaigns, all while only getting 14 or 15 minutes of ice time. Entering his 30s, Holmstrom had become remarkably efficient and an important cog in the Red Wings' offensive machine. As everyone in the organization was riding high on the Mike Babcock hiring, watching the Red Wings cruise to a President's Trophy in 05-06, winning by more than 11 points to the second-place Ottawa Senators, and having at the time the 5th most wins in NHL history, the good times came crashing down in Detroit. The team skated into one of the biggest upsets in playoff history, losing in the first round to the 8th-seeded Edmonton Oilers. While many were to blame for the loss, and you have to give credit to the Oilers and their red-hot goaltender Dwayne Roloson, Pavel Datsyuk received the bulk of the criticism up front. Mike Babcock chose to split up the Euro Twins towards the end of the season and for the series against Edmonton. Henrik Zetterberg performed relatively well, scoring 6 goals in 6 playoff games. However, Pavel Datsyuk did not give fans and media much reason to believe he was a prime-time playoff performer, having 0 goals in the series and extending his playoff goal-scoring drought to a staggering 26 games. After such an impressive and historic season, Red Wing fans were left wondering, maybe it wasn't Dave Lewis after all. The following year, and you hate to sound like a broken record, Detroit was a perfectly built regular season team. Tying with the President's Trophy winning Buffalo Sabres in points with 3 fewer wins, the Red Wings once again bore the burden of high expectations, finishing as the 1 seed in the Western Conference. 6 minutes and 56 seconds into the second period against the Calgary Flames, Pavel Datsyuk took a pass from Tomas Holmstrom and buried a postseason goal, his first in 5 years. The Magic Man went on to lead the Wings with 3 goals, with Henrik Zetterberg adding 2 of his own. As everyone in Detroit breathed a collective sigh of relief, the Red Wings were moving on to the second round. Waiting for Hockeytown was the powerhouse San Jose Sharks. Missing in action after a scary eye injury in the series-clinching game against the Flames, Tomas Holmstrom returned in Game 4, with the Wings down 2-1, and of course scored power play goals in Games 4 and 5. The Wings disposed of the 51-win team in 6 games, with Datsyuk leading the series in points with 6 and Hank right behind them with 5. In the conference finals, the Wings ran into a different type of Ducks team. The Babcock-led squad a few years earlier, who upset the Dave Lewis Red Wings, rode a hot Jean-Sebastien Giguère and a strict defensive system to overcome the odds throughout the postseason. However, these Ducks were not underdogs. A revamped roster under GM Brian Burke, with additions of Chris Pronger, Scott Niedermayer, and a rejuvenated Teemu Selanne. This Anaheim squad was a nightmare playoff matchup. They were skilled, mean, and tough. Detroit lost to the eventual Cup-winning Ducks in 6 games, displaying great progress from the previous year, but still showing they had work to do in order to get back to the Stanley Cup Finals. The Euro Twins, especially Pavel Datsyuk, silenced the critics, skating over 22 minutes a night and having a very productive postseason with 16 points in 18 playoff games. Leading the team in playoff points was the legendary Nicklas Lidstrom, who continued to show that when you're nearly perfect, age is just a number. Nicklas Lidstrom once overheard teammates Chris Osgood and Chris Draper joking around about just how perfect he was, from his play on the ice to his preparation before the game, from his demeanor in tough situations, even to the neatly pressed red and white jersey hanging in his locker. Everything about Nicklas Lidstrom was perceived as perfect. And who's to blame them after 3 straight Norris Trophy wins from 2000 to 2003? That's after 3 straight second-place finishes the 3 years prior, by the way. But the 03-04 season showed a dip in production and possible signs of a decline for the then 33-year-old number 1 defenseman. With 38 points, his lowest ever on a per-game basis, and a 6th-place finish in Norris Trophy voting, while it was still a wonderful season that over 150 other D-men would sign up for, it wasn't crazy to suggest that entering his mid-30s, Nicklas Lidstrom's best days were perhaps behind him. However, Father Time would have to wait for those days, because instead of that possible decline, we got the exact opposite. The perfect human came back from the lockout better than ever, winning Norris trophies in back-to-back seasons, including a career-high 80 points in 2005-2006, and leading the Red Wings in postseason points the following year. Suffice to say, there was little reason to doubt Nicklas Lidstrom's excellence by the start of the 2007 season, even at the age of 37. The only doubt surrounding Lidstrom was, who was his defensive partner going to be? Matthew Schneider, who had spent the previous few seasons in Detroit, signed a 2-year deal with the Stanley Cup winning Anaheim Ducks. Schneider, from ages 34 through 37, had been very impressive for the Red Wings, averaging 24 minutes a night and 52 points per season, including outscoring Lidstrom in 03-04 with a career-high 21 goals and 59 points. However, at age 38, the high-scoring defenseman jumped at the chance to sign a 2-year deal. GM Ken Holland knew he needed to replace that production and those minutes from outside the organization. Which brings us to unrestricted free agent Brian Rafalski. In his 7 seasons in the NHL, the undrafted free agent had become one of the most underrated players in the league, defending in New Jersey alongside Hall of Famers while winning 2 Stanley Cups in the process. Inking a 5-year, $30 million deal, not only did Brian Rafalski secure the largest contract of his career at age 34, he'd also return home to Michigan. It was a difficult decision leaving New Jersey, said Brian Rafalski, the only team I've ever known, but I'm coming home to play for the team I grew up watching. To have this opportunity is a dream. With his mobility and puck handling skills, he is a perfect fit for our style of play, said Detroit GM Ken Holland. Rafalski's final season in New Jersey was one of his best, showing no signs of decline with career-high 55 points and 25 minutes of ice time as the Devils' unquestioned #1 defenseman. Much like Nick Lidstrom's greatness, Brian Rafalski's skill set didn't exactly jump off the screen. He didn't deliver bone-crushing, devastating open ice hits like longtime partner Scott Stevens, nor could he skate with the speed and grace of teammate Scott Niedermayer. Just as Nicklas Lidstrom couldn't intimidate physically like Vladimir Konstantinov, or skate end-to-end effortlessly like Paul Coffey, they did all the subtle things perfectly. Instead of hitting, they used elite positioning and stick work to shut down the league's best. Instead of rushing up the ice, they relied on laser-like precision with their breakout passing. Neither possessed an Al McGinnis or Shea Weber type of slap shot, rather perfectly placed shots through traffic either to hit the back of the net or tips in front. Matthew Schneider was a very, very good offensive defenseman, but no one would mistake him for a defensive stalwart. Brian Rafalski, however, was very good defensively. Since his debut at the age of 26, he paired with Captain Scott Stevens, lining up against the opposition's best offensive players on excellent New Jersey Devils teams. Now Rafalski had an opportunity to skate with another Hall of Fame captain on the blue line, this time in his home state on a team knocking on the door of returning to the Stanley Cup Finals. And he would prove to be the perfect match for the perfect human. The Red Wings entered the 2007 season with a better understanding of what it would take to make a deep playoff run. And while the team had plenty of veterans who knew the grind of the postseason, there were plenty of new faces as well. New faces that experienced their furthest playoff run in the previous year's loss to Anaheim. However, there was little doubt, even though Detroit had solid secondary scoring in Daniel Cleary, Michael Samuelsson, and Yuri Hudler, they were going to go as far as their top guns would take them. The question was, could they reach an even higher level of production? From the first puck drop in October, those top guns were ready to fire, shooting out of the gate with a 10-2-1 record. Newly paired Nick Lidstrom and Brian Rafalski seamlessly fit as the Wings' top defensive pair, with Rafalski scoring 11 points in 13 games and 25 minutes time on ice, with Lidstrom scoring 10 points of his own, also continuing his workhorse usage, averaging 28 minutes a night. The pair's point totals for the month only trailed Brian Campbell for all defensemen league-wide. Tomas Holmstrom started the month skating more than ever before, averaging just over 17 minutes, firmly entrenched as a top-line forward. And with the additional ice time, he scored more than ever as well, with 8 goals and 14 points in 13 October games. Datsyuk had a difficult time finding the back of the net to start the season, with only 2 goals, but racked up plenty of assists with 12. However, where he really started to shine was a newly tracked stat. For the first time ever, the NHL started tracking takeaways, a defensive metric to help measure a player's ability to regain puck possession for his team. Pavel Datsyuk led all players in takeaways with 24 on the month. And as the season went on, it highlighted just how dominant of a defensive player Pavel Datsyuk was. But as the entire 5-man unit remarkably hovered around a point per game, Henrik Zetterberg had the hottest start of any player in the NHL. Oozing with confidence offensively, in 13 games Zetterberg led the NHL in shots with 71, goals with 10, and points with 22, reaching unrealized potential as a scoring threat in the league. As the season progressed, the Detroit Red Wings steamrolled the competition, treating the regular season as a warm-up with a record of 33-8-3 by early January. And a massive reason for their success was the play of Datsyuk, Zetterberg, Holmstrom, Rafalski, and Lidstrom as a five-man unit. A dominant puck possession lineup at even strength, as well as being the five-man power play unit and having heavy defensive responsibilities. You could argue no five players had more on their plates on a nightly basis than they did. And they thrived in every possible scenario. Henrik Zetterberg cooled from his scorching start, but along with his Euro twin partner, kept leading the way offensively for Detroit, even despite missing a few games with an injury. Both Datsyuk and Zetterberg stayed in the top 10 of NHL scoring in the first half of the season, with 54 and 53 points respectively. Unfortunately, Tomas Holmstrom suffered an injury on December 20th against the Blues and would miss the next 3 weeks. Awful timing as he was having a career season, skating 18 minutes and scoring at a 44-goal pace. The Demolition Man struggled with nagging injuries the rest of the way and never truly got back to this production, capping off the hottest stretch of his career with 31 points in 32 games. A quick side note, just to demonstrate Holmstrom's effectiveness with the man advantage, the Wings had the second best power play in the league up until the 20th, and in his 3-week absence operated as the 18th best at 16.1%. Rafalski and Lidstrom were quickly becoming, at the risk of sounding hyperbolic, an all-time great defensive duo. A top shutdown pair, they were also the top 2 scorers for defensemen in the league 44 games into the season, and extended that stretch all the way up to 56 games before Sergei Gonchar overtook second place. Just unreal production from the back end. As the calendar hit February, the Red Wings hit a rough patch in their so far unstoppable season. Both Rafalski and Lidstrom battled injuries as Detroit experienced a 6-game losing streak, with only 1 win in an 11-game stretch. And while Datsyuk and Zetterberg were still very productive offensively, the power play completely faltered without their blue line studs, as Tomas Holmstrom could only muster 4 points in 14 February games, crushing any shot at a point-per-game season. Amazingly, even with all the post-All-Star game losing, Detroit was still the best team in the league. As of February 1st, they led the league by 14 points, but by the end of the month only maintained a 3-point lead over the Dallas Stars. However, with Nick Lidstrom and Brian Rafalski getting healthy, Detroit's fear of a nightmare second half became a slight bump in the road, and any hopes of another team catching them faded pretty quickly as the Wings had a 5- and 4-game winning streak in March and ended the season as dominant as ever. And interestingly enough, as Holmstrom battled injuries in March, a new down-low scoring force emerged, the former third-round pick Johan Franzen, scoring an unbelievable 14 goals in 13 March games. Franzen provided an invaluable replacement for Holmstrom when hurt, but more importantly, some much-needed depth when this 5-man unit wasn't scoring, which would come in handy for a run to the Stanley Cup. The Red Wings captured the President's Trophy with 115 points, and the first unit 5-some truly carried the load for Detroit. Injuries derailed what looked like a career year for Tomas Holmstrom, who ultimately ended up with 20 goals and 40 points in 59 games. Where he did see a career best is in ice time, with 17 minutes and 33 seconds, a huge bump from his previous high of 15 minutes and 13 seconds. Holmstrom wasn't just a specialty niche scorer any longer. He was deployed as a legit first-line winger, again establishing himself as the perfect complementary piece for highly skilled line mates. For the Euro Twins, the 07-08 season was a masterclass in two-way hockey. Both Datsyuk and Zetterberg were tremendous on the score sheet, with the eye test, with advanced metrics, you name it, they thrived in every way imaginable. Henrik Zetterberg blossomed into an elite scorer, finishing first on Detroit with a career-high 43 goals, and also a career-high of 358 shots on net, and 22 minutes and 4 seconds of time on ice, the highest for any forward in Detroit. His shot totals were second only to Alex Ovechkin in the league, while his goals placed him 5th in the NHL and his points 6th with 92, all in 75 games. He'd also have his best finish of his career in Selke voting, placing 3rd. Placing first in Selke voting was none other than Pavel Datsyuk, his first of an incredible 3 straight wins. Leading the NHL with a plus 41, the new statistic of takeaways truly highlighted what a nightmare he'd become for opposing puck carriers. His 144 takeaways this season still stands as the most all-time, and it was by far the most in 2007, as no other player broke 90. In fact, the only skater to come close to this 144 mark was Pavel Datsyuk himself. The Magic Man led the Wings in points and finished 4th in the NHL with 97. It was the second highest a Selke winner had ever finished in league scoring, behind Wings legend Sergei Fedorov, who won the award while finishing second in points in the 1993-1994 season. With Mike Babcock's tight system, he found two truly special talents to put up elite offensive numbers while maintaining defensive integrity. That's very hard to accomplish. Usually one side of the puck has to suffer for the other to thrive, but not for Datsyuk and Zetterberg. Really special levels of high-end two-way play. The 07-08 regular season saw the trio of Holmstrom, Zetterberg, and Datsyuk form one of the most dominant puck possession lines of the modern era. Night after night, they didn't just outscore opponents, they flat-out controlled games. Detroit's top line spent entire shifts cycling the puck, wearing down defenders with surgical precision passing, relentless pressure, and supreme board work. Advanced metrics from that season painted a clear picture of their supremacy, as all three led the NHL in Corsi and Fenwick percentages, hovering around 63%, an elite threshold that reflected just how rarely their opponents had the puck when they were on the ice. Contributing to Detroit's dominance was also their proficiency at the faceoff dot. Leading the league in faceoff win percentage, Chris Draper led the way with 59%, but Zetterberg and Datsyuk weren't far behind at 55% and 54%. Backing up the elite trio was the top blue line in the NHL. Nicklas Lidstrom led all defensemen in points with 70, and would go on to win his third straight Norris Trophy, which is a crazy stat on its own until you realize it was the sixth win in his last 7 years. At 37 years old, Nicklas Lidstrom was in uncharted territory as far as production past 34 years old, and he made a great pairing with Brian Rafalski. Rafalski finished 8th in the NHL with 55 points in 73 games, which paced at 82 games would have placed him in the top 5. Rafalski scored a career-high 13 goals and finished 9th in Norris voting. Lidstrom and Rafalski also led in Corsi for all defensemen with 59.7 and 59.2%. Having the entire 5-man unit 1 through 5 in the NHL. Rafalski's 55 points was 4th on Detroit, behind Lidstrom, Zetterberg, and Datsyuk, and on a per-game basis, Holmstrom would have been 5th. Together, Detroit's fully forged 5 embodied the Red Wings' signature style, a blend of patience, puck control, and near-perfect execution that suffocated opponents and made Detroit the NHL's most territorial, dominant team. And while that regular season is beyond impressive, they've had impressive regular seasons the last few years. The city of Detroit needed a Stanley Cup to cap it off. The Detroit Red Wings opened the playoffs against the Nashville Predators. When you're constantly a regular season juggernaut, the first round tends to bring an undercurrent of anxiety, with memories of massive first-round upsets still lingering not too far in the past. The Predators had clawed their way into the postseason, playing desperate, live-or-die hockey down the stretch, while the Red Wings had largely been operating in cruise control, aside from a brief and uncharacteristic stumble in February. Still, Detroit surged out of the gate with a 2-0 series lead, and even with the scare as Nashville defended home ice and pushed the Red Wings to overtime in Game 5, Detroit's composure and experience ultimately took over. The Red Wings dispatched the Predators in 6 games. The Predators simply weren't ready to take on a powerhouse like Detroit. Their future monster minute eaters on defense, Shea Weber and Ryan Suter, were still in their early 20s, not yet the dominant pair they would become, carefully sheltered under 22 minutes a night. A stark contrast to veterans Rafalski and Lidstrom controlling the series, leading all players in ice time at 24 and 27 minutes. Every member of Detroit's Elite 5 found the score sheet, and their combined 9 goals accounted for more than half of Detroit's 17 total series goals. In the second round, Detroit ran into a familiar enemy, their fiercest rival from the blood feud of the late 1990s, the Colorado Avalanche. While a handful of familiar faces remained from years earlier, this was no longer the Avalanche team that once ruled the Western Conference alongside Detroit. Where the Red Wings had seamlessly bridged eras with Hall of Fame caliber brilliance in Zetterberg and Datsyuk, Colorado did not have that next generation to continue where Sakic, Forsberg, and Patrick Waugh left off. And the difference was glaring in a commanding 4-0 sweep. The Euro Twins were exceptional, scoring 9 and 8 points respectively, but the series was stolen outright by the Mule. In one of the most unstoppable goal-scoring performances in playoff history, Johan Franzen erupted for an unconscious 9 goals in just 4 postseason games. As Detroit closed the book on one historic rivalry, another familiar foe emerged, the Dallas Stars. Another Western Conference titan from years past stood between the Red Wings and the Stanley Cup Finals. The Stars arrived with authority, eliminating the defending Stanley Cup champion Anaheim Ducks and the 108-point San Jose Sharks, stunning both in 6 games. They still feature players from the past greatness, Mike Modano, Sergei Zubov, and Yuri Lehtinen, anchored by a disciplined, suffocating defensive system under head coach Dave Tippett, and supported by a deep, capable top 6 led by Mike Ribeiro and Brendan Morrow. Detroit leaned even harder on its first line, Datsyuk, Holmstrom, and Zetterberg, as their late season and postseason depth scoring revelation, Johan Franzen, had suffered a concussion in Game 4 against Colorado that lingered into Game 1 against Dallas. Luckily, Detroit, as they have all year, could count on their best players to come through. Game 1 and 2 saw the Detroit Fivesome dominate on the power play as Rafalski scored assisted by Lidstrom and Holmstrom, and again in the second as Holmstrom scored assisted by Rafalski and Zetterberg. And in Game 2, in a close 2-1 victory, Zetterberg cashed in on the man advantage assisted by Datsyuk and Holmstrom. Game 3 had the Euro Twins put an emphatic exclamation point on the series, as Pavel Datsyuk recorded a dazzling hat trick on just 4 shots, with Henrik Zetterberg adding 3 points of his own in a commanding 4-1 win. The Dallas Stars did manage to put a scare into Detroit, stealing the next 2 games, but the Red Wings ultimately proved to be the better team, defeating and eliminating the Stars in Game 6. Amazingly, Holmstrom, Zetterberg, Datsyuk, and Rafalski combined to score 10 of Detroit's 17 goals in the series. And although Captain Nicklas Lidstrom went goalless, his 3 assists still contributed to the 5-man unit's 24 total points, more than half of Detroit's 44 points overall. Lidstrom, as always, set the tone defensively, leading every skater in the Western Conference Finals in time on ice, logging a massive 26 minutes a night. The 2 series against the Dallas Stars and Colorado Avalanche in the 2008 postseason served as the perfect snapshot of just how dominant the Ken Holland-built Red Wings truly were. Those 3 franchises had owned the Western Conference from 1995 through the early 2000s, but only the Red Wings sustained success, continuing to rack up division titles and President's trophies. And while Nick Lidstrom remained from the dynasty years, still playing historic hockey, these teams were unmistakably Ken Holland's. Seasons removed from the Scotty Bowman Stanley Cup years, Detroit was once again running through the Western Conference and ready for another championship. But while the playoffs to this point had felt like echoes from Detroit's recent past, the Stanley Cup Final brought them face-to-face with the future of the NHL. The established veterans and masters of puck possession meeting the league's next generational superstars. Detroit's machine-like efficiency would attempt to contain 21-year-old Evgeny Malkin and 20-year-old Sidney Crosby of the Pittsburgh Penguins. Detroit decided early on to show the Pittsburgh Penguins, even though they were indeed the future, they still had to wait their turn, as Detroit shut out the Penguins 4-0 and 3-0 to open the series. Coming into the finals, Zetterberg and Sidney Crosby were tied for the scoring lead in the postseason, and the 2 quickly found themselves locked in a head-to-head clash that would define the series. Through the first 2 games, Zetterberg got the upper hand, scoring a goal and an assist as Detroit asserted early control. The Penguin Stars finally awakened in Game 3, with Sidney Crosby assisting on Marian Hossa's goal in a tight 4-3 Pittsburgh win, a reminder that the future wasn't going to stay quiet forever. But Game 4 belonged to Detroit. After a Nick Lidstrom goal, assisted by Brian Rafalski and Pavel Datsyuk, it was Henrik Zetterberg's time to shine. Late in the third period, the Penguins received a 2-man advantage, and on a national stage, Zetterberg showcased his defensive brilliance, delivering what Doc Emmerich would famously call a Conn Smythe shift. And while the Penguins pushed back with a Game 5 win, the Detroit Red Wings' perfect 5-man lineup was not about to let the season slip away. In Game 6, Detroit defeated the Penguins 3-2, and Hockeytown stood atop the hockey world once again. Henrik Zetterberg scored his 13th goal and recorded his 27th point of the playoffs, tying for the lead in both categories. Some underrated numbers to tell you just how complete Henrik Zetterberg's postseason run truly was. He led the entire playoffs with a staggering 116 shots on goal, far ahead of the next closest player, Michael Samuelsson, who finished with 79. Zetterberg also led all forwards in the finals in ice time with 25 minutes and 47 seconds. A full minute ahead of second-place skaters Pavel Datsyuk and Marian Hossa, who logged just under 24 minutes. And as predicted by the legendary Doc Emmerich, Henrik Zetterberg was awarded the Conn Smythe Trophy, his two-way dominance fully realized in a legacy-defining postseason for the Swede, and one of the greatest two-way hockey playoff runs in recent memory. Nicklas Lidstrom led all skaters in the Stanley Cup Finals with an incredible 29 minutes and 45 seconds of ice time. Not bad for an old guy. He scored 13 points in 22 games, and more importantly, became the first European captain to hoist the Stanley Cup. Brian Rafalski was right behind him, averaging 27 minutes a night and scoring 14 points of his own, winning his third Stanley Cup. He seemed to be matching his defensive partner, seemingly getting better with age. Tomas Holmstrom skated with the best against the best and never looked out of place. Severely banged up, he still logged 19 minutes a night in the finals and finished the playoffs with 12 points, proving without a doubt he could be relied on when the games mattered the most. Pavel Datsyuk, of course, led the playoffs in takeaways with 27 and erased any lingering doubts about his postseason clutchness, scoring 23 points and firmly establishing himself as a top 3 center in the National Hockey League. A Selke, a Norris, a Conn Smythe, a President's Trophy, and a Stanley Cup. A key word used one last time: simply perfect. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe for more line combo content.